Hi ladies, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kaka Amanoh and I'm an etiquette and lifestyle educator. I help women attain femininity through cultivating etiquette, elegance, a good sustainable lifestyle, and virtues. In today's video, we're going to be talking tea etiquette in general. Now, when it comes to tea, a lot of people have various thoughts, but we're just going to narrow things down to universally accepted etiquette when it comes to tea. The first thing you need to know about tea is that tea is fermented leaves that are either beneficial health-wise, or that they are very aromatic and flavorful, that they give a lot of pleasure to the drinker. Now, when you talk about tea and the way to classify tea, you classify tea based off the forms that tea can come in, the types of tea, and the flavors of tea. Now, when I say forms of tea, I mean that tea can come in two different forms. They can come in tea bags, or they can come in loose leaf form. For example, this is what a typical tea bag can look like. And this is a type of tea bag that comes in a sachet. So for this type of tea, the best way to store it would be in a tea box. This could be the box that it came in, or you could get yourself a dainty little tea box like so and just fill it with your different bags of tea. If you happen to rip open a sachet of tea bag, you would find that it comes in a see-through filter bag with a string that is long enough for you to steep your tea in your cup and still have some dangling off the side of the cup. That way it's easy for you to extract the bag when you're ready to drink your tea. The other form that tea could come in is the loose leaf form. Loose leaf tea is typically tea that is not put in a bag and the leaves are free. The drinker is free to measure out the quantity of tea that they want in their cup. Now, these are the two forms of tea. How about types of tea? There are different types of tea. We have the black tea, which is tea that is very rich, very fermented, and it is typically caffeinated. You have the green tea, which is the opposite of the black tea. It is not caffeinated. You also have the white tea, which is it is not as caffeinated as the black tea, but it is more caffeinated than the green tea. You also have the herbal tea. The herbal tea is tea that typically either is very beneficial health-wise to the drinkers, or that it has some other benefits that, aside the flavors, that people drink them for. Now that we know the different types of tea, tea can also come in different strengths as well as different flavors. So you have a variety when you're categorizing tea based off those categories. For instance, you could find the Earl Greys, the English breakfasts, which are typically black teas, the jasmine tea, the chamomile, the ginger, which are typically herbal teas. And then when it comes to green teas, they could be different flavors like cucumber flavor, lemon flavor, honey flavored, and there's really no end to the varieties that you can get with the different types of tea. Now, when it comes to the items that you use while you're having tea, typically, we already mentioned the pot. Now, let me teach you a bit more about the pot. The teapot typically has the bowl, the spout, the handle, and the lid. Now, when it comes to the lid is made up of the lid itself and this tiny little part here called the finial. When you're steeping tea, the entire pot gets really hot except the finial and the handle. This makes it easy for you to pour while you hold the handle and the finial. So the proper way to pour tea is to hold onto it at the handle and to press down on the funnel with 2 fingers or more. And then you pour into your cup. If you're going to be drinking loose leaf tea that has been brewed in a pot, you will be needing something called a tea strainer. A tea strainer typically comes with a little bowl that helps you collect the liquid that would remain after you've strained your tea. So typically it comes with handles that would rest on the bowl of your teacup. When it comes to steeping tea, typically in casual settings, people tend to go for tea bags because they're just easier to manage. But then if you're the type of person who wants, a fusion of the tea bag and loose leaf, to be precise, you want to enjoy the strong flavors of the loose leaf, or you want to enjoy the freedom of being able to mix different flavors of loose leaf without having to go through the hassle of steeping the tea in a formal looking teapot, you could go with something that you call an infuser. So a tea infuser is typically a tiny little container or sieve that has holes in it so that you can put in your tea leaves, cover it, and secure it, and steep it in your cup. That way, you ensure that you're steeping tea for just one, and you're steeping just 1 cup of tea. So this is an alternative way to enjoy your loose leaf. Now let's look at a teacup. A teacup is different from any other type of cup because of the shape and the size of it. A teacup is typically small, and it's made up of the rim, the bowl, the handle, and the base. It typically comes with a saucer as well. The way to differentiate between a teacup and a coffee cup is that a teacup usually is wide around the rim and narrows as it gets to the base, as you can see right here. Although right now, obviously, people try to make teacups in different designs, and that is good, but you would still find that they tend to try to stick to this general principle. The proper way to hold a teacup while you're drinking tea is to grasp your teacup with your thumb and your index finger towards the top of the handle. So you grasp it with the 2 fingers and you support with your middle finger and maybe the rest of your fingers. When you hold onto your teacup, there is no need to extend your pinky. It's a mistake that a lot of us make, myself inclusive. I made that mistake at first, but it's not proper right now. It's considered bad form when it comes to tea etiquette at the moment. If you're being served tea on a table that is a dining table's height, you don't need to take your saucer as well as your teacup when you want to sip your tea. You simply just pick up your teacup, sip, and return it to the saucer. But if you're being served tea at a low table as such, or if you want to walk around with your tea, you should pick up your tea with the saucer, place the saucer at a comfortable height, pick up your teacup, sip, and return to the saucer. I hope that you got that. Now let's talk about how to steep tea correctly. You could either steep tea in your teacup, as I mentioned earlier, in which case you'd either use a tea bag or your tea infuser. If you're steeping tea in your cup, then you're steeping tea just for one. However, if you decide to be extra and want to do things the proper way, which is to steep tea in a pot, then you would know that there's a guideline to steeping tea in your pot. The first guideline to steeping tea in your teapot is to warm up your pot a bit by putting a bit of hot water and swirling that a bit before you put in your tea leaves and finally your hot water. When it comes to the amount of loose leaf that you should put in your teapot, the general guideline is 1 teaspoon per person and 1 teaspoon for the pot. For instance, if this is tea for 2 people, then I would have 1 teaspoon each for the 2 of us and 1 teaspoon for the pot, which brings it to 3 teaspoons in total that I would be steeping. But this is tea for 1, this is just the pot for 1. So now I'm going to be steeping a bit of black tea. I'm going to grab my teaspoon and then I would be putting 1 teaspoon for myself, and 1 teaspoon for the pot. Next, I'm going to pour my boiled hot water. Your hot water should be boiled at a very good temperature. And then I'll just let that sit for a while. When it comes to the duration of time that you should steep your tea for, there's really no rule. It depends on what your preference is. The longer you let your tea steep, the stronger your tea will become, and the more you run the risk of having your tea cold. So somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes is enough. When you're steeping a bag of tea, then it's super simple. All you need to do is warm up your cup as you would your pot. Now, how do we pour tea? We kind of already discussed how to pour tea and how to hold your pot while pouring tea. When you're pouring loose leaf tea that has been brewed in a pot into your teacup, you'll be needing a strainer, a tea strainer. They serve the purpose of collecting the loose leaf as you pour into your cup. That way you don't have loose leaf in your cup, because that could get messy when you're trying to sip your tea. When you're drinking black tea, you have the option of using condiments in your tea. Condiments like milk, sugar, lemon slices, honey, whatever you decide. If you're having black tea, typically people add milk or sugar. But for things like green tea, it kind of ruins it when you use milk for your green tea or even sugar. So people tend to opt for lemon and honey for green tea. With teas like oolong tea and herbal teas, it's usually the intention of the person serving you those teas to enjoy the tea as is, because they tend to be very flavorful and sometimes even tasty. So for those type of teas, you might want to skip condiments for your tea. If you're opting for milk and sugar, you would find that when you're being served tea, you would have a milk jug and a sugar bowl. So your milk jug is typically like a small jug, and it contains cold milk, which you would pour into your tea after you've poured your tea. When you have a sugar bowl, it is usually accompanied with either a sugar spoon or a demi-tasse spoon as such, which is a tiny type of spoon that can be used in lieu of a sugar spoon. If your sugar bowl comes with sugar tongs, then you know that your sugar is in cube form. After you've put in your milk, then you can put in your sugar. To stir your tea, you never stir your tea in circle motions, whether clockwise or anti-clockwise, but you stir your tea in vertical motions from 6 to 12 or 12 to 6 as you wish, ensuring that the base of the spoon does not come in contact with the fine china that is the teacup. That way you don't scratch up the beautiful china and you don't end up making very annoying noises with your spoon. Never clang it against the teacup, because again, china is typically very fragile and that could just ruin the china, as well as the annoying, irritating noise that comes with it. So you just shake it off lightly and place it to the right side of your saucer. To sip your tea, you never look up or look away from your teacup. That just shows that you're not as cultured as you ought to be. The proper way to sip tea is looking down into your teacup as you sip. When you're being served tea, you would either be served tea with pastries like scones or cakes or sweets, which are desserts, in which case you would have your pastry come in a dessert plate and come with dessert cutlery. If you're being served scones with your tea, for instance, if it's afternoon tea, which this is not, by the way, this is just tea. I hope someday to be able to make you a video on afternoon tea and show you the proper way to eat each pastry course that comes with afternoon tea. But today we just have cakes, and I already have a video on my Instagram page on how to eat cake. And the proper way to eat cake is with a dessert fork or a cake fork, which is what I just showed you, a tiny fork. It could be 3-pronged or 2-pronged, it doesn't matter. Now, all the teas that we've talked about so far are actually hot infused teas. They're teas that you need hot water to steep. But there is also another type of tea called a cold infused tea, which is tea that you typically just infuse in cold water bottles and drink casually, or you could infuse them in pitchers and have them for like iced tea and other types of fun teas. They typically come in bags, but if they come in loosely formed, you could just use an infuser for them. I hope that you really enjoyed this video and that you learned a lot from it, because people who are cultivated in tea etiquette are usually looked at as people of affluence, people of class, and it didn't even take much from you to learn this. So if you want to learn more about how to exude wealth and affluence, I have a video on it that you can watch right after this video, and I'll see you in that video. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and when you do, turn on the notification bell. Bye, ladies.